Welcome to my channel. This is JC Rock and Metal Reviews. My name is John. And do you remember when I said I was done reviewing new releases in 2020 and I'm like ready to do my end of year lists? And then Chris Cornell released an album and I said that's my last one in 2020. Well, I got one more. So McCartney 3 is the third in a series of solo albums by Paul McCartney. Now on these he plays all of his instruments and he does the vocals. His first solo album in the series was released in 1970. Now this was named McCartney. This album was recorded on a 4-track cassette recorder after the breakup of the Beatles. That album received a lot of criticism at first due to the raw sound of the recording, but the album did give us Maybe I'm Amazed. Now that's one of the most well-known and loved songs. Now 10 years later, in 1980, he recorded McCartney 2. This was right before his band Wings broke up in 1981. Now on this one, he played all the instruments, but his wife Linda did some of the backing vocals. This album also received a lot of criticism just because of the synth pop and new wave direction of the songs. Fast forward to 2020 during the COVID lockdowns, Sir Paul decides to record another album, McCartney 3, which is the third in the series. So I actually knew about this a while ago. I think I mentioned it on my channel that I may cover it, but then I kind of forgot about it. But here it is. I gave it a listen, and to my surprise, I did like it. I was expecting a boring piano album that would put me to sleep, but no, the songs are full of energy. There are a lot of sounds and tones to enjoy. He plays a lot of different instruments. Now, he's not using any Pro Tools or drum loops. This is just real music. So with that being said, let me go through the tracks. The first track is Long-Tailed Winter Bird. I really like the intro. It opens up with Paul playing like an acoustic guitar. And you hear like a lot of like open strings and finger slides. Now there are some vocals on the track, but he reprises the song later at the end of the album, so I'll get to that later. I like the drums, they're very upbeat. The sound is very natural. Has a very like acoustic and live feel. I love the sound textures and the tones. Almost reminds me a little bit of Tomorrow Never Knows, those types of sounds. Track number 2 is Find My Way. On this track, Paul delivers a really great vocal performance. I like the use of his like almost falsetto vocals on this one. The drums are really good. You hear a lot of different instruments being used. And that's probably the thing that I like best about this album. There's so many different like instruments. I don't know what they're called. I don't know the names of all of them, but there's just so many. Track number 3, Pretty Boys. This is a softer acoustic track. I like the overall tone of the guitar in this one. There's some pretty cool, nice guitar fills in this. Track 4 is Women and Wives. So this track is piano driven. A lot of like different sounds and textures in the mix. I really like this song. It's mid-tempo. Paul has a lot of emotion in his voice in the song. Next is Lavatory Lil. I like the song too. Sounds something like the Beatles on their like later day albums. It's a bluesy rock track. Some pretty cool background vocals and some cool guitar fills. Next is Deep Deep Feeling. This is the longest song in the album. It's 8 minutes, 25 seconds. It starts with a vocal intro and it builds into a more slow, jazzy song. This is another emotional song, very laid back and slow, but the guitar fills make it really interesting. I really like the vocals. Paul uses a lot of different vocal styles, and it's filled with backing harmonies and falsetto vocals. It's very modern sounding, not a traditional rock song. Next is Slidin'. So I like the intro to this song. It's a nice low end bass. Has a lot of like layering in the vocals. I really like how he layers the guitars on each track. Some nice sound effects mixed in. It creates like a really nice atmosphere. Next is The Kiss of Venus. So this track has some really cool finger-picking acoustic guitar. It's very laid back and relaxing. Next is Seize the Day. This one also reminds me of the Beatles, has some pretty cool effects, some pretty cool guitar harmonies. After that is Deep Down. So this is the second longest song at almost 6 minutes. There are a lot of instruments used on these songs. I hear like an organ, guitar, horns, various wind instruments. It's a mid-tempo rocker. Paul's vocals sound pretty good. I like the way Paul like layers all the instruments and creates like this unique sound and cool atmosphere. And to close off is the Winter Bird When Winter Comes. This is a reprise of the first song. It's more of like an acoustic rock song. It reminds me a lot of Blackbird from the White Album. What did I think of the album? So let me preface by saying that the Beatles were one of the first bands I ever heard as a child. I know every Beatles album. I know like every song very well. But as a fan of the Beatles, I never really listened to much of the solo material of the other members, except for John Lennon's Double Fantasy. I was a big fan of that album. I know a lot of Paul McCartney's songs, but I probably never listened to like a full album of his. But with that being said, I really went into this not knowing like what to expect. And even though it's not the type of album that I would usually listen to, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the use of the real instruments like the most. It's not an electronic album. It's more of like an unplugged album. I mean, he uses a lot of electronic instruments, but it has a very like organic sound. It's not a traditional classic rock album. The sound is very modern, and I don't really know what it is. I mean, I guess it has some kind of name for the style of music it is, but I will give this a 9 out of 10 because he was able to keep a metalhead like me interested throughout the entire album with his unique brand of music. So that's about all for this. Comment below. Let me know what you thought of the album, or what do you think of Paul's other albums or his solo work in general. Coming up next, I'm going to do a ranking of the Cinderella albums, a track list of Alice in Chains, and on Christmas I'll do an unboxing video. That'll be pretty cool. You can find me on Facebook at JC Rock and Metal Reviews. Check out my other videos, which are probably on the screen at this point. And like, comment, subscribe, and keep on rocking.